Ha! Spring, who knew? 29 saves on 30 shots against, and it's not like it was easy sledding for Alexander Georgiev tonight. He was absolutely phenomenal. He stands on his head at the end of the game in a flurry from Detroit as they had the goaltender pulled. The Avs hit a post. They miss a net on the short side from McKinnon and Rantanen with an empty net opportunity. But Alexander Georgiev, without a doubt, his best game this season. Avs improved to 15-13 on the year. They beat Detroit. They now improved to 9-1 in 10 or 9-1 in 10 one-goal games this year. That is the best record in the National Hockey League. Detroit has now lost 8 one-goal decisions this year. They can't find a way to put the puck in the back of the net, let alone win a game when it's close. They win 2-1 in Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. As we welcome you guys to Between the Pipes, presented by Safeway and Altitude Sports Radio's Twitch, X, and YouTube platforms. Join us in the comments the entire evening. We'll hang out with you guys until about 9 p.m. or so tonight. But Alex Ryanemi alongside Mark Springer. And Spring, on a night where you get Ross Colton back, you thought that the offense was going to come through, and the team did play a solid game through and through. But Alexander Georgiev is without a doubt the first star of this game.
No, that was his best start of the season by far. Finally, a Georgiev start that I can look at and truly say that was a very good start. And hey, his last good start was 10 days ago at home against Vegas, the shootout win 2-1. Here's another shootout, or not shootout, another 2-1 win here for the Avs tonight. But this one was truly Georgiev. He made big time saves. Nichushkin scored the regulation goal for Colorado in that 2-1 win 10 days ago against Vegas. Nichushkin scores the even strength goal for Colorado here tonight, and he lays the screen, and he forechecks really to keep a play alive on the power play. And then he immediately moves net front to screen Ville Husso, and that's the body that allows Husso to not see the puck at all on Cale Makar's goal. So 10 days apart, it's the Nichushkin and Georgiev show. It's the big Russian show. I like to see it for Georgiev, especially more frequently than 10 days apart. But yeah, man, I mean, I finally really truly was jumping off the ship. Like for the first time, I was saying, I am done with Alexander Georgiev. And then he pulls out his best start by far of the year. So maybe maybe there was truly a sense of, I got to get it together right now, or they're going to ship me somewhere as part of just, he would just be money for a package. If he continued to play the way he was, no team would even want him. But hey, he was great tonight. Alexander Georgiev, you were fantastic tonight. Well done, sir.
It was a great game. He should get his flowers. I don't know if I'm back in bed at this point. It does feel as though this is the ex that says, hey, I've changed. I promise I've changed this time. I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm not going to run around. And then you hop back in bed, and little do you know, their phone is blowing up on the bedside table with other people in their lives, right? So I'm not ready to jump back into that relationship quite yet, but I'm not over. I'm certainly not better than holding kudos when they're due, and they are due today for Georgie. He was great, stood on his head not only in the first period with some stellar grade A saves to keep that 0-0 and then 1-0 for the Avs as they went up early. Now the third straight game that the Avs have scored that first goal, that ever important first goal of the game. It seems as though their start was better. Now, Detroit's a team that's going to miss the playoffs likely this year unless something drastic changes. They just simply don't have it. They were surprising last year. We thought they were going to build on it with all of the veteran acquisitions that Steve Yzerman has made, but under Derek Lalonde, they just simply haven't gotten it done yet. It seems like there's something missing to that roster. I thought that Ross Colton in his first game back looked awesome. I know he doesn't show up on the score sheet, but that first goal, you got to credit him. The neutral zone forecheck that he creates about probably 30 seconds before that goal is scored, and then Nichushkin helps him out on it before you get the middle stat play to Gerard. He goes far side to Nichushkin. That all happens because of Ross Colton's skating.
Yeah, no, and he's back a little sooner than expected. Good to see that foot heal quickly for Ross Colton, as he was amazing. I mean, he seriously was amazing for the Avs in the first stretch of the season before he blocked a shot and broke his foot. And then, they want him to play center, but because of still some guys missing, probably in this case, Jonathan Drouin, Ross Colton is one of your 6 best forwards. He plays in the top 6. He can play on the wing with Casey Middlestat, or you can just, maneuver those two in and out, as Casey Middlestat did not have a good night in the faceoff circle. 1-4, lost 11. I don't know if maybe you see Ross get more looks there as we head forward. Casey Middlestat still struggling just a little bit, but it's great to see Ross Colton back. That's a legit second line in Middlestat, Nichushkin, and Colton. They were very good tonight. You have a legit top line, obviously, with McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen, but they win this game tonight on goaltending and just really solid play, mostly defensively. They were just sound and responsible. This was not a night where the top line did not get loose at all. McKinnon, Rantanen, Lehkonen, it was somewhat ho-hum. Mostly McKinnon and Rantanen. Just wasn't their best night, but they get away with it because they get great goaltending, and they had good nights from Valeri Nichushkin, and Colton made his presence known, and Cale Makar and Sam Girard had great nights defensively and moving pucks. But this was not McKinnon and Rantanen. They were a little ghosty tonight, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that first line at 5-on-5, it's not often that you see a minus alongside McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen when you look at and I'll do a little like nose picker nerd stat here with the Corsi percentages. Typically, they are without a doubt the best line on the team in terms of chances for percentages, and they were without a doubt the worst on the ice. Like, not only for Colorado, they were the worst line on the ice tonight in their 15 minutes and 30 seconds of time on ice together. 11 chances for, 16 chances against. It was just not their evening. They didn't quite have it. They start the game off with the Parker Kelly, O'Connor, Kiwi Ronta line. You see Middleton have a really solid first period, like throwing some bodies. He's definitely a step slower than most of the Avalanche defensive core is, but without Josh Manson, I like the idea of Bednar bringing in a guy like Middleton that provides some beef against a Detroit team that does not score very well, and not necessarily I wouldn't say they're New Jersey in terms of like their pace that they play at. I thought Casey Middlestat was actually pretty good tonight. I know he wasn't great in the faceoff dot. I liked how he skated. I thought he was effective in the offensive zone. Obviously, he gets on the score sheet with the secondary assist on the Nichushkin goal. I thought he was better than he has been in the last 2 weeks, a little bit more engaged. And I think you said it. It's because of Ross Colton. Like, having that extra gritty, physical first presence for me means a lot.
Yeah, and Nate, let's see here. Yeah, 2 shots on goal for Nathan McKinnon tonight. 1 shot on goal for Mikko Rantanen. I tell you what, man, the best skater for me tonight was Valeri Nichushkin, and he's been doing this a lot more of late. A little rusty when he came off of the personal leave, the suspension, that whole deal. But man, the last several games, he's just so smooth. He's so smooth. His strides are effortless. He's good at maintaining a radius with his skating. He can move any which way at any given moment. He's got the big body. He's got the quick release. He's got great hands. His initial shot on the goal is blocked, and then he gathers it back and puts it through Husso. Man, Valeri Nichushkin, and the reason that I feel like I want to talk about this right now is with Mikko Rantanen, wanting that big time money. And there have been stretches where, especially of late, last season and now into this season, where if Nate's not the best forward on the ice, it's Valeri Nichushkin. It's not Mikko Rantanen. It's Valeri Nichushkin. and he's making just over $6 million per, and Mikko wants to double that. Now, I understand that the Nichushkin contract is a bargain, but Mikko Rantanen is not twice the player that Nichushkin is. In fact, more often than not, I'm picking Nichushkin over Rantanen over the past couple of years. If anyone wants to say that's hot takey, go for it. As someone who watches this team night in, night out, the way Nichushkin plays, it's just more effective than Rantanen. I don't know if it's the physicality, the two-way ability that Nichushkin also supplies, his penalty killing ability. He does so much out there, offensively and defensively. I'm just going to point to that as to why Mikko Rantanen shouldn't even be making more than Nathan MacKinnon. No way, no chance.
Yeah, I would assume that the Rantanen deal gets done somewhere around 12 or 12.5 million, and I would be okay with that. I do think you make a good point that Nichushkin, it's a good conversation to have when the player is on the ice. Like, off-ice issues thrown out the window. And I know you can't necessarily do that because the off-ice thing will always be a cloud hanging over Valeri Nichushkin, and it will always be there for the remainder of his career, certainly for this contract with the Avalanche. If you throw that out the window just for the sake of discussion, it's an interesting conversation to have. Who's the more impactful player? And while Nichushkin will never score 50 goals in this league in a season, while he'll never put up 120 points or 110 points that Rantanen has the ability to do, both things are very valuable to a team. You can make the argument that Val Nichushkin is more valuable than a multi-100-point producer in Mikko Rantanen. You really can, because of how he's the cog that makes the machine work. I'm not trying to throw shade at Mikko Rantanen. I think I'm one of his most vocal supporters in the city. But Val's amazing. What a hockey player that guy is. They're a completely different team with him. Completely different.
Yeah, I can't get over how good Nichushkin is, how good he's become from being a guy who, we can go back, the story, Dallas to Russia. He was nobody. His first handful of games with the Avs were not good. And then to see what he's become is just incredible. And if he can keep his head, and I think the early signs, like if you're looking for just little, and they don't mean that much. They don't, because we are just on the outside looking in, and we only see what we see from the outside looking in, whether it's how he interacts with his teammates on the ice, on the bench, videos, footage we see in the locker room, dressing room, whatever it might be. I talked recently about Nichushkin, being the first over to, I think it was Parker Kelly on a goal with a smile on his face. Nichushkin presenting the big hat to Scott Wedgwood in the comeback win in Buffalo. And it seems as if Val's is in a good place right now. If you just look at these little indicators of, the way he's carrying himself, the expressions on his face. Look, it's not much to go on, admittedly, but it looks like he's happy to be there. It looks like his teammates could give a damn about the past as long as it doesn't happen again. And if he has found his zen, I think that's really all it is. If he has found his zen, what an important player he is. He's one of the most underrated players in the league, so much so that I think he's the second best forward on this team, and nobody's going to talk about it because Mikko Rantanen puts up gaudy numbers. He has a couple hat tricks this year. Is Mikko a little stat patty? Perhaps. They're some of these hat tricks, maybe they're empty netters because, man, when Nichushkin is out there, you feel him. You feel his presence, and they do not win this game without him tonight. Both goals, Nichushkin's fingerprints are directly on them. He is back. He is fully back. All that there was rust in the first 3 games. It's gone. He is back. He is an amazing hockey player.
Val Nichushkin, more than any other player on the ice this evening at 5-on-5, had the highest expected goals percentage on either team at 0.54. He led the Avalanche. He led the Detroit Red Wings. He was the best skater on the ice outside of Alexander Georgiev, who makes 29 stops on 30 shots against. He walks away with the big hat as the Avalanche locker room player of the game. They improved to 2 games over 500, and they start to look very quickly at a New Jersey Devils team. So while you can be a detractor and look at Detroit and say, hey, that team sucks and they're not going to make the playoffs, what does this win mean? It may provide a springboard to show, hey, you can withstand pressure in the first and late in the third against a team that's throwing everything at you. New Jersey is a hell of a test. Like, New Jersey they've been knocking on the door for some time. They look like they're ready to be an Eastern Conference champion this year. They've got everything clicking. Jack Hughes is a stud. Nico Hischier down the middle is a wonderful two-way hockey player. They've got a solid, deep, puck-moving blue line. The goaltending is good, and they skate like the freaking wind. And you have to go see them tomorrow in the second leg of a back-to-back, man. You won't beat New Jersey. How's this? I'll put it this way. You will not beat New Jersey if the top line plays like they did tonight. You need your top line to be studs.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're going up against Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, that team can skate. They have a little abs in them. I mean, Jacob Markstrom has had a sneaky, decent season in goal for them, an offseason acquisition for them. He's got some Kemper in him in that he's a bigger body, but he can be a little up and down. Right now, he's a little up, and you're getting him on the second night of a back-to-back. So yeah, this and the Carolina game, we weren't on after the Carolina game, but when you look at this 5-game road trip, these were the two that were especially difficult. So, okay, they dropped the Carolina game. That's definitely the best team on this road trip. They're a very solid, sound team. And you also beat Carolina at home. So you probably weren't going to sweep this 5-game road trip, but Buffalo and Detroit, a couple of teams that are of similar ilk. There's young talent. It's in their building. If you're not careful, they can get you. Almost happened in Buffalo. I mean, man, they wanted to let that be one of those things. Tonight was more solid. Detroit's not playing well overall this season, but to play a solid game where you kept everything in front of you and to get Georgiev some confidence, that's good overall. Won't be so much tomorrow because I expect Scott Wedgwood to be in goal. And Scott Wedgwood, a former New Jersey Devil. Hey, I'll say this. I was a little surprised Scott Wedgwood didn't get the start tonight. I know he loses in Carolina, but that's in Carolina. That's a loss on paper. It kind of is. I'm surprised they didn't just go straight back to Wedgwood. Maybe they were holding him off for, a former team in New Jersey. Maybe it was hey, let's try to get Georgiev the confidence. Detroit's the weaker of the two teams. But Wedgwood leading them tomorrow night. I see no reason that those Wedgwood vibes from the Sabres game can't return because New Jersey's good. They're not as grimy as Carolina is.
Some insight into the goaltending. Jared Bednar did say that Wedgwood was held out of today's game because it was such a heavy workload against Carolina. And there is never a night off against the Hurricanes because of them throwing pucks from everywhere on the ice. It's not always grade A opportunities, but you can never sleep against them because they shoot from all corners of the offensive zone. Heavy workload for Wedgwood, especially at the end of that game when you were trying to jump back into it, tie that thing and send it to overtime. Bednar did say he's starting tomorrow against his old team. So I bet you there was some of that in the back of their mind is that, hey, we're going to put some money on the board for Scott Wedgwood tomorrow in New Jersey. And that's what teams like to do that. You get opportunities to play against your old club. You throw money on the board for the boys and you step up in a big time. I expect him to do that tomorrow. I expect a really good game out of them. Now the question is, can you marry this good, solid defensive effort with an excellent offensive effort from your top line? That's where the meshing hasn't quite happened this year. I said it a few weeks ago. I gave the Avs all the month of November because of the injuries and getting back and healthy. You get November to fuck around. Just get right, get ready. December is the month that you have to start putting some points on the board and separating yourselves from 500. And thus far, they're doing a decent job. A game like this for me is a very meaningful milestone. Can you walk into Jersey on tired legs against a good team and put together the building blocks that you have set in place, win or lose, over the last 10 days?
No, this maybe tonight could be a little bit of a springboard, even though the offense wasn't on their A game tonight. The solid play and the goaltending gets them the win. But had they lost tonight, they were going to be 14-14, and they were going to be 7-7 at home and 7-7 on the road. They were going to be as average could possibly be if they did not get a regulation win tonight, or really the 2 points. And they did that. Now they're 8-6 on the road. They're a little better on the road this year than they've been at home. They're 8-6 on the road. They're 7-7 at home now. They also buck a trend with the first period tonight. They have a clean first period. And Georgiev's, he has a couple nice saves early in this game that I think settles him down. The Avs are the second worst team in the NHL in plus minus in the first period this season. Only the San Jose Sharks are worse. And that's asinine because the Avalanche are miles better than the San Jose Sharks. So maybe, I mean, that plus minus, that's gotta come, like, you got to regress or progress to the mean, however you want to look at it eventually. They are much better than that with starts to the game. I think that is an onus tomorrow night. You've got to have a good start. You've got to start having good starts to hockey games. You can't rely on the comeback. Tonight was a good step in that direction. It's time to start having better starts to games. They got one under their belt. They need a streak. They need to go streaking. You can sneak on New Jersey tomorrow night. Make it two good first periods in a row. I want to see it.
And that's where we've seen the Avs spring over the last few years, where you're a bona fide cup contender every single one of those seasons. They've gone on these stretches where you win 7 straight, or you win, 8 of 9, 12 of 14. They've gone on those stretches every single year since the year that they got in as the 8 seed and beat Calgary in round 1 with the emergence of Cale Makar when he came over from UMass Amherst. They have yet to do so this year. They rattled off one decent win streak, but then they started to fall apart right after. And maybe this is the time that you start to heat up. You don't want to peak in December. Most good teams, most cup challenging teams, they have their most wins in the month of March. That's where you want to start peaking. You want to get red hot right after the trade deadline and feel like you're ready to go in the postseason, then can kind of take the gas off just at the end of the year when April turns and you have those like week and a half games before the playoffs start. But if you don't show signs of elongated success before then, it's really tough to peak in March. I think this is the perfect time for them. I expect them to do it. Astro says, yeah, the Avs still have some terrible face-off percentages. It hasn't hurt them in years past, man. Like, they were a horrible face-off team when they won the cup.
They've always been bad in that department.
It's not something that they really honestly care about.
Mm-hmm. And it, and again, on having Ross Colton back, now for this, stretch coming up, even though you're without Drouin and Wood, and
Drouin's close.
Drouin is close. Yeah, I saw him skating, and that's good because if I'm going to rank those 3 players, Colton, Drouin, Wood, this season, you go Colton 1, Drouin 2, Wood 3. So you got, you were without 3 players, for the past handful of games. 3 forwards coming into tonight. You got the best one of those 3 back. And once again, solidifies your top 2 lines. Now there's no Nikolai Kovalenko on the second line or Ivan. And then those 2 dudes are playing well for what they are. But having Colton on the second line, they're solidified 1-2. That Kelly, Kiviranta, O'Connor line, they're playing, they're not getting enough love. They're playing very well over the past week or so. Kiviranta was a machine tonight. Check-in, working for pucks. Kelly and O'Connor doing good work as well, but especially Kiviranta. And so they are built right now. There really is no glaring weakness defensively. Not having Josh Manson, I'll say this, hasn't hurt them.
No, certainly didn't. Josh Manson hasn't been great this year.
Certainly didn't tonight. There has not been one moment since Manson has been out where I've thought that, Sam Malinsky or Shillington or DeHaan, whoever it is, hasn't filled in admirably. The D-core has not missed a beat not having Josh Manson.
No, they haven't. And I still think it was a decent idea for Bednar to try and bring in some meat along the blue line. I think Manson being out of the lineup, and Manson's hot and cold. Like there's games where he shows up and it's like, holy crap, he's a major boon to that defensive core. And then there's other games where he's like a black hole with the puck and you don't know what he's doing on the defensive side where he needs to be a stalwart defensively. The games without Manson, like Sam Girard's look really good, really, really good without Manson. When he's healthy and he's back and he's done with this wrist injury, they're going to welcome him back with open arms. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise that he goes out with an injury because he wasn't playing well. He was not handling pucks well. He wasn't making smart steps. They were putting the Avs in bad odd man rushes behind. Maybe some time off is okay for that player. I'm not saying that you should fire him into the sun. I think that's insane. Like he's not at the situation where he's not in a Jacob Trouba situation. That's the way I'll say it.
There was no reason for the Avs to be in on Jacob Trouba, right? Like when I saw that he was available.
No.
Not for and I assume that I don't know what his contract is. I assume it's large. He goes to Anaheim. That was a weird day. I mean, there's been a lot of panic with the Avs. It feels like that's more validated. There should be more validated panic with the New York Rangers. It's just been an odd.
Like Trouba's under contract spring for this year and next year at $8 million. And I think he had a full no movement or a very heavy modified no movement clause. And he exercised it because Chris Drury tried to trade him to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And he looked at Drury and said, hell no, find someone else. And then when Drury went, here, I'll send you to Southern California, he packed his bags and he took his family out there, and rightfully so. It's a good spot for him. He's not worth $8 million. Would I entertain the idea of signing him as a free agent 2 off seasons from now? Maybe, but I would do it at like less than half of the cost right now. Mm-hmm. He's not a good defender. And he talked about black holes with the puck. Like Manson is a more sure-handed defender and puck mover than Jacob Trouba is at this point.
And then also in New York Ranger land, and there is a Avs adjacent relation on the Blitz on Friday. So Berto, he really wants the Avs, or he doesn't. He keeps bringing up the idea, at least, of trading Rantanen.
Berto and I talked about this. Berto and I talked about this in the hallway in between segments of the Blitz.
Yeah, no, he's hung up on this, and so I have to, and hey, it's an interesting conversation, at least, at the very least, to just throw stuff at the wall and brainstorm and just, see if you like something. I don't hate that aspect of it. But trading Rantanen for one of those premier goalies, and the one that, would have made sense would have been Igor Shesterkin, because it felt like maybe he and the Rangers were at a little bit of a contract impasse. Perhaps the same thing is going on with Rantanen and the Avalanche. But today or yesterday, Igor inks that big $92 million extension, 8 years, 11.5 per. So he won the negotiations. They were offering him like 8 something per, and Igor got it up to 11.5, which I think is, I think that New York was cheap with their first offer. This might be a little bit of an overpay, but certainly a win for Shesterkin. That's now dead. The idea of trading Rantanen for Igor Shesterkin, a lot of people didn't like that idea when
it's now dead.
Yeah, but you can rest easy now. That's now dead.
When Berto brought it up to me, it was literally like water cooler talk. I was filling up my water bottle 20 feet to my left right now at the refrigerator, and he goes, "Hey Raj, trades 1-for-1. Mikko Shesterkin, they both sign identical deals, 8 years and $12.5 million." And I went, I'm Mr. Don't trade the 50 goal scorer ever, because they don't exist in the league all that often. And he made me stop in my tracks. Now that thing is dead, and I appreciate that. And now if you look at the best goalies, the highest paid goalies in the National Hockey League spring, pretty much all of them are not being traded by anybody. Carey Price is essentially retired. Sergei Bobrovsky is in year 6 of 7 of a $10 million deal with Florida. He's not going anywhere. Andrei Vasilevsky has 3 more years on his $9.5 million average annual deal in Tampa Bay. He's not going anywhere. Connor Hellebuck is in the first year of an $8.5 million extension over 7 years, average annual basis again. Swayman is in the first year of an 8-year extension. Sorokin is in the first year of an 8-year extension. None of those guys are being dealt. So you very quickly have moved on from is there an elite goaltender to trade for? The answer is nope, they don't exist. They are either signed long-term or they're retired because their hips are disintegrating in Carey Price. The next stage of goaltender that we get to, that's kind of the Goldilocks zone. And that's the zone that exists with 2 players, John Gibson and Jordan Binnington. Both players
I knew those would be the names.
$6.4 million for John Gibson, and he's got 2 years remaining on his contract, and $6 million for Jordan Binnington at another 3 seasons. Both teams likely not playoff teams with cap space that you could hopefully get to retain some salary. That's the next conversation. If you still want to trade for a starting netminder, the conversation basically starts and ends with those 2 guys.
And now we're out of Mikko Rantanen territory. Shesterkin was the only one that would have made any sense for, whether anyone would have been for or against it. It's just the only goaltender of that ilk that you could have even had the conversation about, regardless of your feelings about it. But now that's dead. And it was probably a long shot either way. And even if it was a long shot, it was probably something I didn't like. I probably wouldn't, because, all these goaltenders, man, they all, except for Hellebuck right now, and even the Jets just went through they went on like a 4-game losing streak. They all have their games, all of them. I've seen Shesterkin have games where it's like, I'm not sure. So I'd love for Mikko Rantanen to be back, but we'll see what that number will be. We'll see. And he won't be involved in any trade now for a goaltender. That's now off the table.
No, he's going to stick here, and I still think that's the right decision for the organization. Keep elite players within your team, and I still believe that the organization has a hard internal cap at $12.6 million. You don't get to be paid more than Nathan MacKinnon. You don't. He has a Hart Trophy. He puts up 140 points. He is a son of a bitch to play against every single evening. He is a shot-producing Jesse. You don't get to be paid more than him. That's just the straight up. And I know you're looking at Leon Draisaitl and saying, well, he gets paid more. Well, Leon Draisaitl does more. And Leon Draisaitl plays the middle, and he kills penalties, and he scores more, and he's more consistent in terms of point production. I'm not saying Mikko's not a good player. He is freaking unbelievable. Mikko Rantanen is a Hall of Famer. His jersey will be retired by the Avalanche when he's done. You're not Nathan MacKinnon. You don't get to make more than him.
Well, Mikko Rantanen, and the numbers are good, but just 2 assists in his last 4 games. He last scored in Dallas, that 5-3 loss. No goals in the 4 games since. You want to get paid more than Nate? I can't be out here thinking that Valeri Nichushkin is impacting the game more than you on a night in, night out basis.
You can't say it any better, Spring. You can't. So there you go. The conversation ends right there. When I'm wondering whether or not a guy who makes $125 million a year is a more impactful player on a consistency basis, that's where it ends. That's it. No more.
You got to produce at a higher clip than Nichushkin, who you would be making double. They'll get the deal what a steal done. That contract is, though.
They'll get the deal done, dude. I'm still telling you, I still think they're going to try and make a deal for a goalie. Maybe it's just me. The Binnington thing feels like such a good fit. And I know the fan base fucking hates him. And you should absolutely hate the guts out of that guy because of what he pulled with the Kadri thing 3 postseasons ago. You should hate the hell out of that guy. But he would look really good in an Avs uniform retained at 50%, wouldn't he?
Look, I mean, Nazem Kadri, wasn't really upsetting the Avs per se up in Toronto, but he was upsetting a lot of people. And then, came to embrace him with the Avs. Now, Binnington was more upfront and in your face, being in the division. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons why it would make a lot of sense. I mean, you can say Binnington, you can say Gibson. They're very similar. Binnington is actually a more proven commodity, though, of the two. He's won a cup. He's been on the ice more. He's available more. He's not hurt as often as John Gibson. There's a lot of reasons.
And he has the history, Spring, of being a postseason gamer, turning it on when it matters the most. And he has that history. And Gibson, frankly, doesn't. Yeah, people are so pissed off at me in the chat right now.
It's one of those things, like, in order to win, like if the goal is winning and then you're just presented a path that you have to choose to accept or decline, it's like when good meets evil, like do you embrace it? But like that's your best path. Sometimes you just do it and you don't worry about it. But we'll see. I mean, it's a possibility. It would be hilarious. Don't deny, everybody, that it wouldn't be hilarious. It would be hilarious.
It would be one of the funniest things you could possibly do. Like, it happens all the time. Like, Roger Clemens played for both the Sox and the Yankees. So did Johnny Damon and Ricky Henderson, and Wade Boggs played for both. Like, you hate a team and then eventually you go to a team and sometimes you help them win, which is what Clemens did when he left Boston and was a Yankee. He helped them win World Series championships. Like, guys, it happens. And you know who hated Roger Clemens? Yankees fans. And you know whose jersey number is retired by the Yankees? Isn't it Roger Clemens? Am I correct that 22 is not wearable anymore? Am I wrong?
Not 100% sure. You hate it until you'd see it on the ice. And until Jordan Binnington is giving high fives to Nathan McKinnon. And it would
Clemens,
would it be a little bizarro world for half a second? Of course it would be. But if that's the path,
so pissed off at me, Spring.
First of all, look, I wouldn't say that that's like I wouldn't put it at overwhelming odds by any means that this would be an actual thing that would happen. But if it did, I tell you, all these people who are upset would change their attitudes real quickly if the Avs whipped off 3 in a row with Binnington and net. You know what I'm saying?
I sure do. All right, last thoughts on tonight's game before we get out of here, Spring.
Well, they didn't play their best offensively, but they were solid, and they finally got great goaltending from Alexander Georgiev. For the first time this season, I can use a capital G with a capital R-E-A-T. He was great tonight. So it took until December 7th for him to have a start where I can truly grade as a legit A. No minus. I don't know if I'll go plus on that A, but at least, I mean, that is a very good NHL start for Alexander Georgiev. Maybe this boosts him forward, but at least we know he's got it in him. He didn't lose it entirely. He's got it in him there somewhere.
Yeah, he certainly does. We're going to do all this again tomorrow. Scott Wedgwood's going to be in goal for the Avalanche as they take on the New Jersey Devils. Mark Springer will have your pregame show on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5 starting at 4:30 p.m. I'm taking a day off and chilling at home and watching that game, watching some NFL football without the nervousness of having to worry about the Broncos. It seems as though the ACC title game is pretty much all said and done, although SMU is driving 1st and 10 on the Clemson 20. They're down by 17 points, though, in this title game. They take a shot at the end zone, can't find their wide receiver. The Ducks are hammering Penn State, although that was a closer game in the Big Ten championship than I expected it to be up until that point. We had an OT thriller in the SEC. We had a big stinker from Iowa State. Is Arizona State?
Well, Arizona State's
11 and
actually
2?
I think they've been overlooked. That's actually a pretty decent team. Who's that coach? Kenny Dillingham. He's my
Yeah,
age.
I like that guy. How old is he?
He's 34.
Holy crap.
It makes me really assess my life decisions. Man, he's a good little coach. And that Cam Scattaboo's a heck of a dude. I like him as a Bronco. Can't get Ashton Genty. You got Devin Neal with Kansas. Cam Scattaboo. I like him. He's good.
I'd take that player in a heartbeat. I would take that player in an absolute heartbeat. He's a mean runner.
He's like Javonte. When Javonte was, yards after contact, shaking dudes off. Good for our Big 12, the conference that we're back in here in CU Buffs land. Man, that game was in Dallas. Home of the Cowboys. That's a damn shame that Shadur and Travis didn't play in that game. They would have made, if that was CU Arizona State, that's a respectable game, not what Iowa State threw out there.
SMU scores. They got an extra point pending to make this thing a 10-point game with 13 minutes to go in the ACC title game. Actually, before we get out of here, any commentary on Nikola Jokic and his historic night, 56 points, career high. However, the Nuggets lose to the Wizards, who snap a 16-game losing streak. Nikola Jokic had this to say after the game: in my country, where I'm coming from, after this kind of stretch, you're gonna get a paycheck that's a little bit less than what you're worth. So maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe a little motivation that way. He laughed as he started to say that, and then added, "What's the name of it? Being benched, being on the bench." I think that might be some really good motivation too. Nikola Jokic is fucking pissed.
He should be. Obviously, no Jamal, no Aaron in that game, and I was scoreboard watching that thing as I was watching the Avs game. Yeah, Washington's bad. I don't care who you're without, as long as Jokic is out there, you got to win that game. Yeah, something's wrong. Something's wrong with the Nuggets. Feels, and again, I from what I've seen of late, maybe not tonight, and Jamal's been one of the main culprits of this, but they're too selfish right now. That ball movement and that rhythm offense is not there for the Nuggets. Even with Jokic as the rudder, it used to be so smooth, and there used to be a purpose and everyone working in unison. That is not there right now for that team.
Yeah, they're lost. They need to flounder out of it. They're now 11 and 10, just one game north of 500. But the Avs, 2 games north of 500. It feels night and day with where both of these teams are. Even though they've both kind of been wishy-washy. I think I heard Scott Hastings have on Friday. He called it a Christmas light schedule, where on ESPN. It was either Scott Hastings or DMAC that said it on ESPN, where you have the win-loss column and wins are green and losses are red. It's just red, green, red, green, red, green. Both teams have kind of been that way. But the Avs arrow, for me, is decidedly pointing up, and the Nuggets arrow is down. I think they're going opposite directions right now.
Yeah, because at least with the Avs, there's nobody who I look at on that team and I say, man, you've regressed. What has happened? Every single player on the Avs has shown in multiple moments, and there's not been any extended stretch where I've thought, oh, is this person cooked? Is this player what has happened overnight? No, everyone still appears to be in their prime, still skates fast, still is quick, and the decision making is bang, bang, bang as it needs to be at this level. Jamal looks like he's regressed. I know he didn't play tonight, but my gosh, you have to be on your elite championship behavior. And the Avs, there's no one that I have felt that way about. I don't know what's going on with Jamal right now. I really don't.
It's insane. That's going to do it for us tonight. Avs win 2-1 in Detroit. Until tomorrow evening, we'll be back on right around the same time, 8 p.m., 8:15. If you guys are listening in the Denver metro area, or if you want to listen to Connor on the call, make sure you guys download the Altitude Sports Radio app and listen to it there. That's powered by the Will Hite Law Firm. Mark Springer is going to be on your network call. He'll be your host the entire evening, starting at 4:30 p.m. He'll do your intermissions and postgame show, and he'll jump right back here with me on Between the Pipes, presented by Safeway. But for Spring, I'm Raj. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Avs win. We love you. And we'll see you in about 23 hours later.